Theme song for the podcast. How you going, Uncle Leon?
Not too bad, mate. How are you? We're back on the horse.
Two
You had
weeks
a good
in a row.
week?
That's pretty good. Yeah, mate. Week's been okay. It's a good win from the Fremantle Dockers in a close one on Saturday night. So I wasn't there. It was raining. It looked miserable. And of course, I'm there tomorrow night, which looks also like it will be raining and miserable. But other than that, mate, bloody just living my life. What about you?
Yeah, man, the rain. I didn't have a gig last weekend, so that wasn't too bad. And I mean, look, we got to talk about it. A Dockers home game that's not a home game. They still won without you, mate. But it was tight. You know, I feel like they would have absolutely got their pump on had they had the correct warm up in there. So, yeah, it's been. I mean, it's just one of those weeks that has just disappeared into the ether for me. I feel like all I've been doing is working and reading about new pieces of gear that are coming out, which is never a bad thing. Trying to ignore the West Coast Eagles results.
Ooh, that was brutal.
And yeah, geez.
What
else?
What gear are you reading up on, mate? Is there anything tickling your fancy?
Well, you know, Troy, we did quite an interesting podcast last week that was fairly well received about the new Lion 6 products they announced. So it was interesting to hear from Eric Klein, who's a product manager. I'm just going to say it, friend of the podcast. Eric, if you're listening again,
mate.
Thanks for your
Eric.
input. Yeah, exactly. Centroya Helix.
Yep,
And
Stadium.
mentioned we were talking about the stem separation. So it's going to be apparently in Japan only. You've got like an online service that Yamaha offer for stem separation. So it's going to be that. So that was cool to get an answer about what's happening there.
Straight
what
from
else
the
came out?
horse's mouth.
Exactly. Very, very cool to have that. The Red 7 Leviathan preamp. Did you check that video out that I did?
I saw that you released one, but I haven't watched it yet. Because I'll be honest, mate, I watch probably 1 out of 10 of the videos that come out of your mouth these days. I'm too busy. And
exactly.
And
Why would you?
I'm too busy listening to Tim Gossage, SEN, him and Scotty Cummings just talking about footy. So that's number one. And then I've got to sneak in a little bit of Leon Todd at the bottom there. And Mike Nielsen as well.
Just here and there.
All of our friends. But go on, Red 7 pedal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Like very, very chunky sounding. I'll drop it off to you so you can try it out, obviously.
So the form factor is similar to the
IRX style.
And what's the other one? There's a couple of pedals that have that same looking thing. Like, what was the blue one that you demoed a few months ago?
Yeah, so there's I believe it's the Carlos Audio Works, the Mothership. That was pretty cool. And there's also another one from Greece that I tried. It doesn't have the IR stuff. It's like a preamp pedal, the Corbis amps preamps. They sounded really good too. And they're like chunky boxes. But yeah, the Red 7's like very similar to the IRX, but you can select different power amp sims in there and different power amp sims per preset and channel. It's got the built-in boost. It's got the trim pots on the side, 2 independent channels, the IR loader. It's got a built-in doubler, which is cool, and a noise gate. I don't know, Friedman recently added a noise gate to the IR series of pedals. So, and the noise gate's one of those, like, the detector detects the dry signal, but the noise gate is after the preamp kind of deal. So, it was really, really good. Lots of people seem to really, really be into it. And, they're doing some cool stuff. I'd love to get one of their, they make a rack mixer specifically designed to do the Bradshaw style thing.
Yeah. I remember seeing. Nielsen and Torin have those, right? Or maybe one of them has it.
I believe so. One
of them.
I mean, between them, they've probably got everything.
Yeah. Just quickly, that style of noise gate. Am I right? Someone with more knowledgeable can correct me on this. The ADA MP2 has that, correct? Where it's got a noise gate, but I'm fairly certain it has a noise gate. Secondly, it has the detector is on the input, but the gate is on the output. I'm fairly certain.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the first time I remember seeing something like that. I remember, mate, this was funny actually. I remember 2007 probably, you and me going to like Harbour Town. We used to go to Harbour Town, Watertown now, have a little wander around. And but I just remember like reading up about ADA MP2 at that specific, probably like the morning before that, like pre-smartphones and stuff, and having like all these specs like flying around in my brain and then talking about it with you. I got this other really vivid memory of that day. I'm fairly certain it was the same day, of me being like upstairs waiting for you to arrive, and there's just like Leon, long hair, headband, wearing boots, just like walking up the street, just approaching from like maybe 100 meters away. Like, just can't miss him. So yeah, very. It's burned in my brain there.
You could hear the clop of my hard sole shoes.
Yeah, the clop, exactly. So yeah, that's anyway. That I think about that detection style. I'm fairly certain it was in the MP2, but someone again just correct me. I need to get mine.
Very cool.
Properly working again at some point, but we'll see. That'll happen one day.
I thought it might be interesting. I did a live stream with buddy and friend of the channel, David Beebe, last week. We were just talking about basically how long it takes to get good at guitar. And I thought it might be cool to sort of follow up that conversation, because there's obviously a lot of stuff on the internet and in general geared towards these sort of like hacks, you know, get great at guitar fast, how to sound like your favorite guitar players, you know, people like me doing lessons called like 5-minute licks. And it's not that, you know, I feel like maybe that's a misunderstood concept where it's like, oh, so if you just do this for 5 minutes, suddenly you'll be better at guitar. It's like, no, it's just explained in 5 minutes. It will take a long time to get good at it. So I thought it would be curious, and feel free to start. Like, when did you start wanting to get good at guitar? It's a feeling we all have, from just like, oh, it's something that's fun to play around with, to like, no, I have goals. I've got a particular thing that I'm aiming for. And what sort of roadblocks did you run into? How did you go about doing it? And what pieces of gear along the way were important to you? Like, you know, if you were playing like a steel string acoustic with an action that high, and then you had an electric guitar, that would be an important progression.
I mean, arguably, I'm still working it out, but
aren't we all?
The 3 progressions for me, to be brief about it, because I started playing when I was about 5, so I was a kid, I didn't give a shit, and I played because my family just like, oh, go take some guitar lessons because that'll be good. So did that, didn't care about it. I wanted to play guitar, not be good at it, but I wanted to play guitar when I was in high school, probably like age 13, 14. And that's because I thought girls might like me. So that was important. Mm-hmm. But then the transition between that, and there was a couple of years of being like, oh, well, you know, I also enjoyed it. I liked learning songs and playing songs that I was listening to, because I started to actually like music at that age as well. So that was fun for like a couple of years. But then it was probably 15-ish. Would have been around like 15 when I was like, oh, I'm starting to listen to more complicated music that was challenging. And it wasn't just like Incubus songs that weren't like super easy, because there's some bits in that you got to like learn how to play and practice and stuff. But playing lead guitar and like trying to shred and hearing the Steve Vai types, which was kind of hard at that particular time to find. There wasn't, weirdly enough, at least when I was looking, I couldn't find a lot of stuff of Steve Vai's on LimeWire, which it was there, and I found it eventually. I absolutely found it eventually. Sorry, Steve Vai. And bought all those albums too, obviously, like, and legitimately did, because it was exciting. It was like, oh, I can't download this album, but it's at the shops. Well, I better fucking buy the album, you know?
Yeah,
buy
man.
Passion Warfare. But, you know, that was the age for me where it was like, it was developing the interest in it first was important. And then getting good at it didn't really like matter until you're like actually challenged and you're like, you know, you find stuff that is like, that's interesting. And I think that's always what it is with this stuff, is it has to be driven by like self-motivation. And it's not just guitar, like teaching music recording. I'm more interested in production and mixing and all those sort of things. Like that's like probably the number one thing for me. And less so guitar playing over as I've gotten a bit older. But as I teach students that are in a similar position to what I was like maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever, you get a classroom full of students, and let's just say there's 15 kids, 15 kids in the class. Mm-hmm. I can show them all how to do it, and I can give them the exact same lessons, but there's probably like 1 or 2 of those students that have the self-motivation and the self-interest to go and explore it further and sit down in front of the computer and try it, or go into the studio and mic something up. And it's always just that level of self-motivation. And it isn't really, it's not, you have to want to do it ultimately. It's kind of weird to say it like that, but it's true. You can't just absorb these skills passively. Like with piano, like I can't play piano, I can't play drums because I can play like a drum beat and I can play some chords, but I can't play the instrument because I just don't give a shit enough to learn it. that's the truth. That's fine as well. I'm good at the things I'm good at, and let's just leave it at that. But I guess that was my like journey with it. And I mean, yours was a little bit different, hey?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously grew up around guitars a lot and didn't want to play them because why would you when it's something that your dad does?
Yep.
But similar thing when I was, in my early teens, like I started really liking music, even though I could play a little bit of guitar, kind of similar to yourself. It's like, yeah, maybe how to hold a pick already, which is a bit of an advantage when you're 13 years old. Mm-hmm. If you've held a pick before and your mate never has, then, you got the head start. So yeah, for me, it's like being into skateboarding and the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater video games. There's heaps of music on there, so you get exposed to like all this rock and metal and punk that wasn't necessarily like played in my house, but then all the stuff that was played in my house was kind of like classic rock and country and progressive stuff. So lots of cool, I was just like immersed in that environment where like, well, yeah, if you're going to do it, it's got to be good and you got to try to be the best kind of thing. So I feel like that was always the baseline. I probably started playing guitar to try to be good at guitar more so than trying to, the aim of being like, well, I want to be in a band or I want to get girls because, I'm a nerd. So you mentioned Incubus right at the start. What other bands like right at the beginning were you like, yeah, this is cool? And was it that you could learn a song relatively quickly? Was it like the songs you wanted to learn, or was it like the guitar bits that made it cool?
I'm not sure. Do you mean with Incubus in particular? I think
let's say Incubus.
I liked the band. For some reason, that was the band that I connected with at the right time, more than other stuff. And not that I wasn't really super into music, weirdly enough, before that age. But I could always sing as well, like a little bit.
Okay.
So the musicality part and the pitch and stuff, like that's all natural stuff for me. So, yeah, but like I guess listening to their music and being like, well, I have a guitar, maybe I try like play some of this stuff now. I guess I put that stuff together a little bit later on, and it just was really satisfying to hear something and look at a tab because I wasn't doing it by ear. I did try and do it by ear, and I was not like very successful in it. But yeah, it was just a thing of like, well, let's just look up the tabs and see how to play these things, and then Bob's your uncle. And then it was probably just more songs and stuff after that for a little while. It wasn't a specific artist that I was like, I'm not going to say I'm like the biggest, I've always been the biggest Foo Fighters fan or anything like that. And, I liked Nirvana, but I wasn't obsessed with them. Funnily enough, I had In Utero. I didn't have Nevermind. Like In Utero was like the first one of the albums I listened to heaps. Which my grandma bought for me, weirdly enough. She gave me that album, and there's like a song on it called Rape Me, which was, I'm glad she didn't like turn it over and look at that. I remember seeing that at the time, yeah. Like, oh, even at like 15 or something, 14, being like, oh, that's a bit sort of spicy. But
this is on the edge.
But yeah, and like we had school bands and stuff, like because you were at Ocean Reef at that time, right? You went at Mindarie.
Yeah.
Did they have a music program at your school?
They did have a music program, but I wasn't in it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take like woodwork and muck around. There's a story one of my mates continually reminds me of. So, there's not a lot of. Ocean Reef had like a soccer or football scholarship program, and it also had, you could do surfing as a subject. So, that was. I went there because I got some academic scholarship and then flunked out of it. And then I was just kind of, in all the regular classes. So it was kind of challenging because I didn't really know anyone. I had like one other kid I had been to primary school with. And so you sort of like meeting new friends and stuff like that. And, there's not a lot of itches around. So there was basically another Serb at the school called Peter Vranisevic. And, we just became buddies, and he was in my sort of form class that you go to for the first 10 minutes of the day. And the design and technology teacher was also Serbian. And so he's reading the roll, and he goes, Tim, Peter, Alex, good name, Leon, and like continues on. So he just like, he let us really get away with being absolute little shits. So anyway, I'd much rather be in the design and tech class. And I think I spent 2 hours lacquering, like spraying multiple layers on a piece of sheet metal and then setting it on fire with my mate Peter, just because we could. So that was my mindset at the time, just kind of that like wanton pubescent destruction. And then also had a friend who got into skateboarding, and they got a guitar and sort of made like, you know, a jab at me where it's like, oh, you have guitars in your house and you can't play anything. And, you know, I've never done anything, but I can play like, you know, a Green Day song. And I was like, you know, okay, of course, this means war. So I sort of, you know, there was that competitive element of it to like know more songs than your mate. And I mean, in a roundabout story, I ended up teaching them guitar a lot later. So yeah, long story short, I wasn't in the music program there. I wasn't interested in it, but I was interested in like guitar, like the sport of guitar maybe.
Yeah.
And then I went to another school, Mindari Senior College, which did have a music program, which I auditioned for remember when it used to be the TEE, the tertiary entrance exam?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So I auditioned for that, and they didn't have enough students to run the program. So I just did their like, I think it was called Music and Society or something,
Man.
which it was like, you have one project, record a song.
There's so many people from our age that was the class. Like I did Music and Society in my school too. And it was the most fun because it was a small class, but it would also be a split class. So we would have, it would be a year 11, 12 class. And, but that was a funny thing. So it's interesting you mentioned that because so I was listening to Incubus and I guess like alternative rock stuff up and through till year 10. And then in the start of year 11, we do Music in Society. And there was probably 6 guitar players in this class. And for some reason, and it's really, really funny to think about this, but one of the guys, Drew, his older brother played guitar. And his older brother loved George Lynch. And so Drew was super into Dokken. And he got all the other guitar players in this class into Dokken. And he had a VHS of all the Dokken music videos. And that just went around this group of guitar players. So that started this thing of like 80s metal and that style of playing for me. Whereas, yeah, previous to that, I wasn't really interested in it at all. It's like you listen to Metallica and it's like, oh, this is so heavy, this music. But yeah, I mean, fuck, not like Dokken's heavier than Metallica or anything like that. And then like over the next couple of years, and I've still got some friends that are into metal, and they showed me more stuff and all that. But the competition side of it sort of happened with that. Maybe not like watch how I want to be better than these guys, but they were like they could do stuff, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. In hindsight, like I don't think any of them could play in time. I think I
definitely couldn't.
Well, there's like a thing, it's a tab thing as well. Like I think we all understand this, but like when you read a tab, it shows you where to put your fingers, but it doesn't really show you anything about the music side of what you're doing. So, you know, like,
yeah,
you can rip through a lot of notes. I see with a lot of kids now as well, who've clearly like learned stuff through tab. Maybe not a lot of kids, but a few of them, they don't like translate to the music side of things to play with bands. I guess it's like you can play with backing tracks, but you still don't have the same sort of interactive feel with other musicians, and that takes a little while to develop. But like, man, music programs in schools, in the school that I went to at Mount Lawley it was really important for me because I was in the jazz band as well in that year, and I got tapped to join the jazz band too. Because out of this Music and Society class, and there was like a lot of guitar players in there, but I got asked to do it. I think because maybe I was a bigger nerd than the other kids, and maybe I would be a little bit easier to and maybe a bit more diligent. But I was so bad at playing in those. I still can't really play chords. Like, I mean, chords with numbers. I could play cowboy chords all day long, play it in time really well. But you know, chords with weird voicings, like there was a huge gap in knowledge in that. But also, like, I mean. Nowadays, I don't give a shit about that. It's like it would be nice if I had that skill, but I would probably not need to apply it that often. And like I don't really obsess about the sound of that. And again, I just sort of focus on what I focus on, and you know, ultimately my ears good enough anyway, so I can make something happen. Anyway, I've come rambling a little bit there, but
No, that's interesting. Were you singing in high school? Because that's not a thing teenage boys like to do generally.
a little bit. So we had another big part of my development was, it's actually quite funny. So it's like a girl that I went to primary school with. So I'd known her since year 1, and so her brother is the same year as my sister as well. And so if I remember correctly, their dad, their dad was a guitar teacher, and he lived pretty close to us as well. So he apparently bought a bass for his daughter and a guitar for his son for Christmas. And this would have been in like 2000. And to encourage them to play it, like, you know, they just weren't that interested in it. So he'd started a band at the high school, and that was kind of semi-motivation to get his daughter to start playing bass. And he knew that I'd been playing guitar for a really long time before that. So he asked if I was keen. And I remember he called me, and like he as an adult called me as a year 9 student. And because, you know, like these parents, okay, you know, like we've known the family for years. So it's just like, oh, why does he want to talk to me? Oh, I'm starting a school band. Would you like to play guitar? And I was like, oh, maybe. So yeah, this was year 9, like midway through year 9. But that was like the introduction to playing in an ensemble environment. And the first song that we learnt was Hash Pipe by Weezer, or he called it Half Pipe because he didn't want to, thought Hash Pipe was probably not appropriate for kids. But like we did that. We did some
amazing
Green Day songs. But there were a couple kids that sang, and they asked me to sing as well. And I was like a bit too nervous, but I think it was in year 10 or 11, maybe it was in year 11, but I got up and sang Man Who Sold the World. So the Nirvana cover, originally David Bowie song. And got up, and that was the first time I'd sung in front of people, and it went really well. And when I was that age, I would rip past upon the stair. I was like real Creed sort of put that voice on. I do it a little bit when I sing the theme song too, because it's kind of funny, but it's not really how I sing like normally. So yeah, it was, and I got a lot of good feedback on that as well. It was kind of good for my confidence, but I kind of knew I could sing like before that, and that sort of informed the fact that I could still do it. But I always really struggled singing and playing at the same time, and that took a long time to develop. But man, it's a funny thing. Like for me, like my ear is probably the only real. It's not. Yeah, the talent that I have is that like I can usually make something happen. I can sing harmonies really well. I can pick that stuff up really quickly. So what I lack in a lot of dexterity and stick-to-itiveness with practicing sometimes, I can fall back on general like musicality. And it's a good thing. It's like it's been really helpful, but it has made me lazy in other aspects of learning. But again, ultimately, I can still go do a gig, so that's okay. But doing the school band.
You see that? I see that with some kids where they've got that, you know, growing up in a family that sings. It's not as much of a look. Let's just put it out there, mate. It's not a white people thing, is it? Like, you know, suburban middle class.
I think it is.
Australian families are not singing families. Not here.
Not in Australia.
And
no.
You don't have. Not in Australia, no. And you don't have like, you know, there's not as much. You don't have as much organized religion either. We're going to politics and religion on the podcast, so no. But you know, it's a massive thing. Like if you grow up going to church and everyone in the sort of neighborhood goes to the same church and you all sing, like you just grow up as singing's an okay thing to do. Whereas like where I grew up, you didn't sing, you kicked a footy to yourself and like don't sing because, you know, someone will tease you or make fun of you. I always think of the, and I'd encourage people to go and watch it. It's a really great interview. Andrew Denton enough wrote when he has Daniel Johns from Silverchair on.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, they talk about him being a teenager and Silverchair basically happening. And Andrew's sort of like, oh, so you must have been like the most popular kid at school, right? And he was like, nah, I got beaten up every single day and like massively bullied because I was singing. And, you know, that was like not a manly thing to do and all the other things that go with that. So, you know, I kind of ended up like, it's a, you know, you get a really interesting insight into that snapshot of Australia in the 90s. But Yeah, that's almost like a superpower, the fact that you were just comfortable singing. And I mean, I can't sing, but forcing myself to do some basic stuff helped my ears so much and helped me transcribe things and just helps with like general musicality in such a massive way that I don't think anything else can compare to. It's obviously like tied to, and you see a similar thing. I mean, you've got young kids, when they start talking, it's one thing where it's like, whoa, development accelerates. But then when they start reading, it's just like this, you just get this explosion in their little developing brains. And I feel like music as well does a similar thing, but particularly, I say that to all my students now. They're like, oh, well, what's the best thing that I should do? It's like, man, just learn to sing relatively okay. You don't have to be great at it, but like just the being slightly useful at it will get you so many more gigs than if you just like, only do fingers on strings.
Yep, that the old Reb Beach thing. I was saying that to someone yesterday. Like, if you can sing, man, you'll never be without gigs because, not everyone can do it. Yeah, like you can't. You don't sing lead vocals to do a gig. Like that's not your.
Yeah, I couldn't do a gig. It wouldn't be great. It would not be very good. I'd have to fall back on trying to be funny, which has been my only defense mechanism in my entire life.
But it's the same. Yeah. It's what a lot of guitar players are like, man. It's just it's this stuff, and that's great. There's like that's also cool, and it's a useful skill to have. But I mean, it's the stuff that is not flashy that people really don't pay enough attention to. So like ignoring singing, but stuff like just being able to play in time, man. That's again from tabs. You don't really get that because it's not flashy to sit and just play like power chords. It's not competitive in the same way, like watch this Paul Gilbert solo that I can play. So people ignore it, but man, that's the shit that matters really. So
I remember, here's a deep, deep memory for you, Troy. Do you remember going to Billy Hyde Music together? And there was a dude you knew, and I couldn't remember who he was, and he was playing some like metalcore kind of stuff. And, we were both like, oh, look at this guy just playing riffs. Then he just like out of nowhere did this like insane sweep picking stuff. It was just like he could sweep. He couldn't play any lead guitar. He was like playing sick riffs and then just like sweeping and sweep tapping. And I remember just sort of like, we were chatting to him. I think you played a bit of guitar and like, did your thing and played some stuff and sort of hand it back to him. You were like, oh man, I felt like I really sucked in front of that guy because I just kind of noodled around. But it was sort of like, I remember thinking, there's someone who like approaches practicing guitar like they've got a routine, and it's purely a technical based thing. And then you're coming at it from the other thing of like, just do what sounds cool and who cares? It's like that. Well, I think I probably,
to interject for a second, that person was that kid Drew that I just mentioned, whose older brother like loved George Lynch. So there's a bit of a full circle moment. So yeah, he could rip.
Wow, there you go.
That was his sort of
crazy.
Was his stuff, so yeah. Anyway, go on.
I think I was probably a little bit in the middle where, so Music in Society, we had the school had a dedicated music room with like a control room with a computer in it that had Cubase and Reason in it. And like no one knew the teacher didn't know how to use it.
Yeah, the teachers never know how to use that
So
stuff.
It was just kind of like, and you didn't have to go to school on a Wednesday at Mindari, but the school was open. So you could go in and study and use the stuff. It was a young adult environment. So I'd go in there and just like figure out how to record stuff in Cubase. And I remember taking... there's a couple of good stories here. My mum dropping me off, and I had a rack with an IntelliFX and a JMP1 in it, and a Marshall DSL and a 4x12 cabinet. No one there. It was a Wednesday, and I took the amp into the main classroom. I mic'd it, and I turned it all the way to 10. And I think I played guitar for about an hour, like in the control room, like playing around with the mic position, and the next day at school, the woodwork teacher, and the woodworking room was at the other end of the school. He goes, oh, g'day, Leon. That must have been you playing guitar yesterday. Yeah, you got some good riffs in there. Gee, that was pretty loud. And I was like, not just amazed that he could hear it at all, that it was still loud there. So, but yeah, we had to do, so having that was like groundbreaking because I could record myself. And then my dad got me, remember the Boss hard disk recorder I had?
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, like BR 1600 CD, and you could 16 tracks. It had a drum machine. It had like modeling in there that sounded really bad. I had chorus on everything, so nothing has changed. But you could mix and like master a song and just immediately record it to a CD. So yeah, in Music in Society, our final project was like doing as a class, we did a CD compilation, and when it came time to like submit the track, and I just did this instrumental song at home. So I had like, you know, the drum machine and all the different patterns, and I played bass on it. And I played some really basic keyboards on it. I had all these guitar harmonies. It was like 4 guitar tracks or something. And we sort of printed the CD. And I remember like a couple of days after everyone got their copy, everyone was like, Leon, how on earth did you do that? Like, how did you make it sound like that? Like, that was the weirdest thing. Because everyone was trying to do like, there was... I remember it was like Delta Goodrem was, you know, the thing. So like half the class were like trying to be Jack Johnson. Half the class were trying to be Delta Goodrem. And, you know, it's a bunch of kids and there was some all right stuff on it. But then there's this like, you know, Shrapnel Records sounding instrumental in the middle of it. I think I recorded like an acoustic thing as like an intro to it. And yeah, there was some fun stuff. Oh, and there was a track on there called Melt Your Face.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Because you would have had some of that up on MySpace as well, probably, which is like what I was listening to when we met.
Man, I think I'm trying to remember because it was a pattern my dad showed me, and it was this. It was just that, and then, and yeah, there's probably like a little. But yeah, me and my buddy Gareth and this dude Sam who played bass and who had Dexies all the time, which I didn't really know. He always just had this, and he used to tell the teacher, he was like, "Oh, it's for my ADD, miss." But I think he just was always cranking Dexies, so he was always hyper. So to be like my friend Gareth, who was a really good guitar player, playing drums, and then Sam doing like full on like, you know, just like writhing on the floor playing bass. And me playing guitar. So yeah, that was really important because it was like, you know, we were the crazy heavy metal band at school and we'd do school concerts and then, you know, like rock out. So yeah, I think that stuff gave me, you know, having that environment, again, different to say if you're in the US and you're used to playing at church every Sunday with a worship band, or, you know, if you live in a country or society that values music and has things that, you know, funding towards things that aren't just sport, this might just sound like it's not a big deal. But like for us, those music programs were, yeah. And also, as you said, like LimeWire and Kazaa and being able to download stuff that you couldn't buy. Yep. You know, sorry, Lars, but definitely downloaded some Metallica on there as well.
I don't know if I downloaded that much Metallica. I feel like I ended up buying a lot of those albums. Because
I ended up buying heaps of it as well.
It was more convenient to have it on CD as well. Like it was nice to have the album. Whereas like I feel like I would go to because my internet was so slow as well. It would always just be one song at a time. Yeah. Like man, I remember it's embarrassing, but like year 10, there was probably like 8 songs that I downloaded, which each one would have taken an hour. But there was like, you know, Kryptonite was there.
Hell yeah.
What else was there? I can't remember now. I think I've said this to you before, but for years I thought that Pantera, like Cemetery Gates, was just such a terrible sounding song. And as it turns out, it's because the MP3 that I had was like the lowest possible bit rate. And it was like, because it's a long song, but it would have been like a 2 megabyte file. I'm like, oh, geez, this sounds awful. So that was all quite funny. But yeah, like to talk about the practicing stuff, man. I mean, I was probably year 12-ish, and I got into Steve Vai stuff in year 11, and really wanted to learn how that was, because I remember reading in guitar magazines how, oh, he's one of the best guitar players. Oh, it's so crazy what he does. I'm like, well, I think that's when the competitive...
And he also practices 8 hours a day?
Yeah, but that was when the competitive side of things became important to me. And I think like, because the era that we grew up in with playing music, like if you flash it back 20 years from that, 25 years to when all the kids were really into Van Halen and everyone wanted to be Eddie and everyone wanted to play that sort of stuff. Like there was competition. You had like lots of kids that wanted to do that. Man, I think it was like after people outside of that like music and society class, where a lot of those kids either graduated or didn't continue when I was in year 12. So, yeah, there wasn't really anyone to compete against like directly, but it was like, oh well, this is hard, and if it's hard, it must be really good. So I've got to do this, and then it was like, yeah, Steve Vai stuff and trying to find the tabs for that. I got really into Paul Gilbert towards the end of that year as well, and then for like 2 years after that, I was the biggest Paul Gilbert head. And yeah, definitely had Racer X albums that I downloaded illegally and listened to on repeat. But yeah, those exercises, man. I mean, funnily enough, they had, when I went into my first year at uni, that in the library they had the Intense Rock 1 Paul Gilbert Intense Rock video.
Oh, really? That's cool.
That's where I got that. It was on VHS, so I hired that out and I'd watch that and try and learn some of the licks. So that was also like really important. They had that. They had the Steve Howe. No, not Steve Howe. Steve Lynch video. The tapping thing.
Hi, I'm Steve Lynch. Let's do some hammer-ons.
Yeah, the hammer-on.
Best intro.
I'm pretty certain.
Straight into it.
Yeah, I broke that video, that VHS, not intentionally, but like the tape came off the thing. Because I was only able to watch it once or maybe twice. But yeah, and then it was like,
wow.
I didn't go to like uni to study music. I went to study sound and recording, but I just go and get those shred videos and had a lot of downtime because, you know, that's just what you do. So I'd sit. I always had a jazz. Well, here's one. I don't really play these anymore, but I've got one around. I would always have a Jazz 3. Yeah, there you go. I was holding I had one guitar teacher in year 12 who, so I had him in year 10, 11, 12, maybe just in year 11. Maybe must have been year 11 and 12. But he was like a jazz guy, but he grew up as an 80s metal guy as well. So he kind of knew the George Lynch and all that sort of stuff, and the Paul Gilberts. But then he was like, he got really into jazz. And then I remember he went to Brazil over the break in the school year between year 11 and 12. And he came back, he's like, oh, I'm going to show you how to play. I've learned from this Brazilian guy, and you're going to hold the pick. So it's actually good that I've got this pick here. I feel like I've spoken about it, but like a normal way of holding the pick would be like that. So as you're striking the strings, it's kind of on an angle downwards. So his whole thing was to hold it like the other way around. So with these fingers, and I guess you're like slicing, hopefully you can see that, but like slicing the string like that at a different angle. My thumb, and our friend Nick always makes fun of me for this, but that's as far as my thumb bends back. Some people have the thumbs where it really bends back a lot more.
That's me too.
Well, there you go, mate. But I think with that sort of, when you've got that slightly more double jointed thumb, you can really get the angle like a little bit easier, or I sort of struggled with that. But anyway, I sort of like pinched it. I'd angle the string up, and with the Jazz 3 pick is the only pick you could use because it's really pointy on the end. But I just like really, really, really like practiced that action a lot. And man, I got really accurate with it, but it took a lot of work. And there were some things like doing string skipping I found really easy. Doing 16th note triplets was really easy. Sweep picking was impossible. Like I really could not get it like fluent and fluid. And playing, and later on when I started playing acoustic guitar again, and just rhythm guitar, then I went back to holding it like a normal pick, and then I just use Tortex 88s now because that's comfortable. But all that stuff, like, you know, talking about practice and stuff, man, like that was really foundational for me to zero in on technique. And I really enjoyed the process of that. And again, I was competing. I don't know who I was competing against, but I was trying to get as good as I could and as technical and find the most complicated music still within, you know, shred metal, obviously. But I remember, excuse me, when I met Amy, my partner, she said like, or maybe it was her friend was like, oh, Troy, he plays guitar. Troy, play us a song. And I was like, oh, I don't know any. Which is true, because I can show you some like shred exercises.
We've all been there, bro.
Yeah, but like I remember her friend was like, oh, can you play Brown Eyed Girl? And I was like, I don't know that song. And I mean, ironically now I've played it about 7 million times, but yeah, it's just for all of this, it doesn't really translate into music that general public people really know or understand about. And I certainly couldn't play in time. It took a little while to get that side of my, you know, playing down a bit. But like you were like ripping ass in high school. And I guess like, I mean, you're a bit of an outlier in terms of how much you still play guitar and practice. Of like the people that I know, you're still a bit of a freak weirdo, like super nerd. So what's wrong with you, mate?
Yeah. Well, where to begin? It all started 9 months before I was born. Yeah, it's funny, right? I think I've always been detail oriented to a point. There's just like the household I grew up in and things like that. There's a lot of that stuff, but you know, like I was definitely someone who was considered good at school. So, you know, if I want to try something, sure, I'll probably be good at it. And I was an absolute wiener kid. But then, like, when I got into sport, I was just like skinny, weak little kid. And I feel like when I got into like playing, especially Aussie rules, right? It's like, if you just try really, really hard and, you know, like if you just commit, then that's like a point of difference. So I felt like that probably translated to, that was the only way I knew how to learn. So especially on electric guitar. And it was like, yeah, like the Paul Gilbert Intense Rock 1 thing, I remember my old man showing me, he was like, oh, hey, you know, if you're trying to like alternate pick, like you can do this thing where you just continue the stroke onto the next string. It's called economy picking. And I was like, cool, that makes sense. That's better. And I learned heaps of this economy picking stuff. And then when I tried that Paul Gilbert, you know, the Sixers thing, I couldn't play it like him. And I had this real crisis of like, oh no, I can't actually consistently alternate pick. So I spent loads of time, and I had a Zoom 707, and I figured out that you could get a metronome in it. So I just cranked the metronome up in that and literally just play that lick. And I also remember there was like a Guitar World magazine or something, and there was an interview with Mark Tremonti. And, you know, everyone forgets this about Mark, that he went through a period where he just went from being the dude in Creed to being like an incredible shredder. And it's this video, and it's this video of him like ripping. And I was like, this can't be the same guy. Like this isn't the guy from Creed who plays, you know, like in weird open tunings, but doesn't really play solos. What? And he's like, oh yeah, like I had some lessons with Michelangelo, and he showed me all these things. And I've just been practicing guitar so much. And I was like, man, like it was one of those things where I was like, I know like Steve Vai and Paul Gilbert are good, but I didn't realize that you could just like get good if you just practice. So that was an interesting thing. And I remember I feel like there was a thing, maybe an article where they were like, oh, so what are you doing? He's like, oh, you know, Michelangelo showed me these things where you do just like hammer-ons all the way up the neck, but then you do, you know, as far as you can stretch. And then you do these fingers. So stuff that absolutely does not translate to playing music, but like the finger dexterity stuff. So I used to do a lot of that. I was like, right, I don't have 8 hours to do this stuff. I'm going to do 30 minutes of like metronome a day. And I probably did that at least for a year. And I feel like that was a really important part of getting all that stuff down. But yeah, then it wasn't until like I started playing with you and Cam and Mike, where it's like you guys had been playing together for a while, so you could play in time, and like what an anticipation means, like and like just stopping at the same time, and like, you know, playing tight rhythm guitar with another guitar player and things like that. So yeah, that was like developing up to a point, and then realizing it's like, whoa, man, I actually don't know. I have no musicality, right? It's just all like pure technique based stuff.
Yeah,
really confronting.
All that stuff is still like useful and good. It's just yeah. If I don't want to be disrespectful. Like there are plenty of like bedroom guitar players that's all they want to and need to do. They don't need to go out and like do gigs, and they don't need to go like write like shit and perform whatever. Like that's fine. But it's like, I don't know. I don't find it very fun. Personally, to me, like the act of playing music, like I'm very constricted playing a lot of gigs with a drum machine, and I'm really over it because it's just so like, it's just so nothing. It feels like there's no response. It's just, yeah, I don't really enjoy that. But yeah, like when you do get the chance to play with like a decent drummer, or hopefully even a good drummer, and a bass player, and it's like everyone's like interacting and working together, it's quite a fun experience. So yeah, like to circle back around, like, you know, you said like how long does it take to get good, I guess, or maybe you said that before we started recording, and that's what we want to talk about. I think it's like, man, if you want to get, like, you have to really work out what good means to you, because you can learn how to play chords in like a couple of months if you put enough attention into it. If you want to learn how to rip, then you can also probably do that in the course of a couple of months, but that's to maybe develop the technical proficiency to do something, but to develop the musical like side of that too is kind of it's not a lifetime sort of thing, but that just pulls from like the things that you're influenced by, and maybe other shredders, maybe other music, maybe other ideas. But it's just like trying to combine all the things is a bit of a I guess it is a bit of a lifelong journey for whoever it is that's doing it. Some people do get to a point where they don't progress much past that. And yeah, if your thing is that you like, there's guys I've seen on Instagram who, they've got the clock in the background, look how fast they can shred. It's like, that is impressive because it's not easy to do that, but you're just doing exercises. It's just like, I guess, like lifting weights, and there's all that's cool too. Music to me is it's not just exercises. Like personally, what I enjoy listening to isn't just someone doing guitar exercises. It's a little bit more than that. But if that's satisfying to you as the player, and that's all you need to do, then yeah, it's not the sort of thing that you can really work out in 5 minutes to do. And these short.
Do you think that having that like fire, where like you're just like, oh my God, I've heard George Lynch. This is the coolest shit I've ever heard in my life. I will not rest until I can do this at least as good. That, I don't think that's actually a universal thing for people. I think people maybe sometimes approach it as like, well, here's something that I have a relative, I'm not a beginner on guitar because I've done it for a bunch of years, but I also don't really have a direction. So I'm looking for someone to tell me what's good. It's like, you need that internal thing of like, no. I think I know what's good. I know what's good. George Lynch is good. Paul Gilbert's good. I got to chase that thing. Do you think that makes it easier than just like, oh, I guess I just kind of want to like get a little bit better at, a bunch of things?
I guess so. I mean, like, yeah, if that's your goal, then sure. But I don't know, man. It's hard. Like, everyone's different, and all these things are like, you say, oh, that's good. Said that some people hate that music and it isn't interesting to them or fun to them, and
yeah. Well, sorry to remove it from like the conversation about like relativism with this, but it's like, having an aesthetic to aspire to, which is, and you see this with, if you're in the gym lifting weights and you want to have like huge forearms or something, like there's a bunch of stuff. People have worked out how to do that, but you still have to do the work.
Yeah.
You can talk about it a lot and you can tell people about it, but that thing of like, I feel like the thing for me that was, and also you need the time, right? You need the time to, playing for 30 minutes a day is really good as like maintenance and learning a bunch of stuff. But, like what we were talking about with, when you're 15 years old, you don't have a lot going on in your life. So if you just want to listen to Steve Vai for 18 months, you can do it.
Yeah.
And it burns a bunch of like things into your musical DNA. And that like, I think there's the important thing as well, where like once you figure out how to practice, and that definitely doesn't work the same way for everybody, which is probably why there's so much content on like, oh, do this, try this. It's, I guess I'm trying to circle back around to like the thing for me that supercharged like really enjoying music and really, growing with it was that idea of like, oh, it's a creative endeavor and you're allowed to experiment. And when you experiment, try things you've never done before, you need to be on that edge of like, okay, if you're doing a gig, play what's appropriate. But if you're like, I don't know, writing or practicing, like where's the weird stuff at? That's definitely something I think I got from, especially for us working together, where it's like playing a solo in the studio and you're like, cool, that sounds like an exercise. Now play me something that means something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know how to respond to that actually.
Yeah.
Like just generally that idea. So I agree with you. And yeah.
People, you know what? The passion, that's the easy way to say it. I hate using that term, but it's like you have to be sufficiently passionate about it, right?
It's A, the power, B, the passion.
Yep.
So anyway, there you go. That's a little
What is it? First you get the money, then you
get the sugar, then you get the women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's you mentioned before, maybe it was before we were talking, but the get rich quick schemes, but for music.
Oh God.
It's just it's fine if it helps you, then that's good, and if it makes you passionate, then that's good too. But you know, the want to do this stuff has to be there, and that I think that's like an internal thing. It's not an external thing.
Yeah.
And so as long as you can do that, it's never going to take like a month to learn this stuff, like really understand it, and not to say that you won't get it, but it's just like I think it's sustained experimentation of putting your fingers in different places and listen to different music, and that's where it all develops, and that's where it stays with you as well, I think, which is just equally as important. Like, you know, I mentioned before, man, I went through fads where all I think about is ADA MP1s, and I'm in there with 3D printers as well at the moment, and who knows how long these things are going to last before I move on to the next thing that I get obsessed with. Like, guitar was that for me when I was about 15, maybe, thereabouts. I did it for long enough, and I was obsessed with it for long enough where it's going to be in my brain for the rest of my life. Same as audio, signal flow and gain structure, and then mixing. There's still that thing in there, and everything else kind of comes and goes. So, it was the sustained like obsession over a period of probably years that meant it's always there, and I've always got a foundation to build upon. I think if I was to like learn violin, maybe not violin, something I understand music to a certain amount, have fundamental skills in music, rhythm and pitch and melody and these sort of things. So like learning another musical instrument, I think it wouldn't be necessarily easy, but it wouldn't take me as long as like, I'm trying to think of a good example, like filmmaking as a creative art form. I don't really care about it that much. I like watching movies, but I'm not to the point where I'm like going to obsess about like shots and angles and watching like 8 million movies to have a catalog, and it's not of interest to me. So that would take a long time. More than like a 3-week course on some online program, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Or same thing with mixing, right? Is, you know, that's probably even more, you know, it's like the mixing bro science stuff that you see all over the internet, right? Where it's like, you know, I like the Dan Worrell thing where he's like, what no one talks about is that mixing is an iterative creative process.
Yeah.
You know, it's, if you want to get good at it, do it.
Yeah.
That's the only way, like, you know, and, you know, there's a few fundamentals there, and yes, everything else, everyone's going to have their anecdotal approach to stuff. I kind of feel like with, especially like if we circle it back around to guitar, and then, you know, this being the Gear podcast and guitar gear, one unintended consequence I think about when you try to like get into a new style of music, you might play like an AC30. Like if I played an AC30 when I was 15, rubbish. Doesn't do saturated high gain like an ADA MP1. Why would you want to do that? And exactly. I also didn't have the reference point for those sounds or the sort of music that they were popular with. But, you know, when you get like a Telecaster and, I don't know, play like a Tom Petty riff through it, then you're just like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it catches you in a particular way. And then you want to like, you know, I feel like there's that saying, you know, whether like if you're trying a new food or a new style of food or something, it's like if you make the first couple of times you do it really comfortable and pleasant, then you'll probably be really open to it. Like it could be the weirdest, you know, like rotting shark or something. But if you're doing it with your friends in like a cool, like, you know, quiet bar and you're having a few drinks or something, you try a little bit of it, and you do that a few times, then like you sort of get into it. And that's, it circles back around to like your Dokken example, right? Your mates who are the same age in music class, oh, you got to check out this VHS. Oh, cool, I'll participate in that if like my mates are doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you sort of, those, how, it's like that feeling of like getting it is really important.
Yeah.
And having those, you need those experiences. And guitar and, you know, whatever musical instrument you're playing definitely provides those inherent rewards. And that's like why you should do them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like probably personally that those rewards have been few and far between over the last little while, which is why I don't practice so much anymore. But maybe I'm due for it, you know.
But also, you know, like there's other ways to experience that reward. Like, you know, you play on top of a stadium and, I don't know, someone after the gig just tells you that they had a good time, or you get to go on the radio and talk about what you do. And, you know, it's a lot of people I've spoken to recently, when your name comes up, they're like, oh man, yeah, I was at the footy and like I saw Troy and it was killer. Like, it's so good to see a local guy playing live guitar like that. You know, that's something that's like meaningful to people. And it's, you never get to experience that, but everybody else does. So yeah, maybe you're just spreading the love around, mate.
Oh, there'll be a couple of 4-year-olds that come to the gigs, and you know, Santa will bring him a guitar for Christmas this year, so that'll be nice.
Exactly.
We'll see. Or maybe they're like, oh, that sucks, I'm gonna go play drums. I'm gonna be a DJ instead, they'll say.
Or maybe they'll all get together and go, you know what? This guy would sound so much better if he had a brand new Line 6 Helix stadium while he was playing in a stadium. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, with stem separation done by the Yamaha Cloud. How much shilling do we need to do before Line 6, before my friend Eric sends me one to demo? Eric, hit me up. I'll give you my address right now.
The opportunity for 50,000 people to hear it every week, you know, it's just... Look, there's the what is it? The Amazon wish list. You just get one of those up, mate.
Yeah,
and it'll be bloody lovely.
Hey,
in all seriousness, though.
In all seriousness, should we start doing some merch? Do you reckon anyone would wear a Gear Podcast T-shirt? We got the logo.
The T-shirt, but the T-shirt is you photoshopped on Scott Stapp, me photoshopped on Mark Tremonti, and it says theme song from the Gear Podcast.
I love it. Maybe is there an iconic? Oh yeah, I watched the music video for what is it? Hold me now, I'm 6 feet from the air. What's that song? Is that One Last Breath?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, have you watched that music video? It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So maybe we can.
Man, I just remember the with Arms Wide Open music video, and it was like when that song first came out, and it would be on the like, that's right, come down to Sanity. We've got all the latest CDs, such as Creed, Human Clay.
Man, do you remember? I was trying to find this to send to you guys, and sorry for everybody else because this is a little bit boring. But do you remember so much? There was a period of like 5 years during the late 90s, early 2000s that there would be an ad for the Newsboys with a guy talking about.
Oh man,
yeah, because So just purely by coincidence, man, I thought about
deep memory.
Yeah, I thought about that ad 2 weeks ago, and this is not a word of a lie. I checked Facebook the next day, and the new singer from that band got in trouble for some untoward activities, shall we say. I hadn't thought about that band or that ad. I mean, it's not my sort of thing. So, you know, for 20-something years. And I was like, wow, what are the chances of that happening? But I tried to find the ad from the 2000s to send to you, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Anyway, someone's probably got it on a VHS.
Yeah, man. What was the other one? I always remember... in store now, it's Sanity, the new Incubus album, A Crow Left to the Murder, with the new single, Megalomaniac. And then they play a bit of the song, you know, and me just being like, this actually sounds pretty cool. Yeah. I should check this out.
Do you know, I had that song, like
wild.
I had a bootleg of that song from a festival they did in like 2003. And, which, you know, I think the album came out in 2004, but I had this bootleg and I had Cool Let It Pro. And that was one of my first things that I tried to do in audio without really being that interested in other parts of audio.
Yep.
But I tried to, what I didn't realize at the time, but I was trying to master the song because it was really quiet and sounded kind of bad. So I threw a bunch of EQ and, I can try and make this sound better, which it obviously didn't. But yeah, it was quite fun. So again, you start this stuff as interest, not as like, being forced into it. If you can develop interest in it, it always makes a big difference. And here we are. Here I am in my recording studio. What's that? You
know what? Not everything has to be a hustle. Yeah. And we grew up in a generation where you could just, you're into 80s rock guitar. Good on you, mate. You know, go and enjoy your life and do that. That's a good way to spend time on Earth. Now there's so much pressure of like, okay, so you're playing guitar. How are you going to monetize that? You're going to start a YouTube channel. You're going to start posting on Instagram. You're going to do gear reviews. You're going to do a podcast. You know, you're going to be a brand. It's like, No, you can't start there. Like that's
Yeah.
They're things that happen much, much later. You know, it's like just do it because you like it.
Yeah, I miss having hobbies sometimes because so much of my work is tied up with my hobby as well, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I think that's why generally I'm not watching as much guitar YouTube as I was a couple of years ago. But remember, we got super into barbecue for a bit because, that's just what men do.
I was going to say, I saw a video the other day that I thought of you. It's Andy Cooks, the Australian guy, and he just did a thing at Big Don's, but he smoked an oyster blade instead of a brisket.
Yeah, right.
He's kind of raving about it. So
That's cool.
Get on the oyster blade train, mate.
Mate, might give it a shot. Anyway, should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. This was a good episode.
I'm going to go to the cafe before it
You go and do your
closes,
thing.
mate. But,
well,
it's nice to be back 2 weeks in a row. I think we can probably do this next week as well, can't we?
I think we can, Troy. I'd love to hear from people. Maybe some viewer questions would be interesting, and we can address those.
And Eric, if you want to get in touch as well, you can just send Leon a message to get me that Helix Stadium. No worries. I'm happy to debut
I think
it.
if you go to the website, Get Troy a Stadium, then you can all pitch in.
Yep. So cool bananas. Well, peace out, Uncle Leon. I'll see you next time. Hey.
Peace.
Good on you, cousin.